So we're now ready to continue with our Southern applications. And from the South, the state of Tennessee. The state has applied to hold a pre-Wendell state-run primary. At this time, I'd like to welcome Chair Campbell to the podium to begin the presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am Rachel Campbell. I'm the chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party. Thank you to the committee here today for the time, care, and seriousness you're bringing to this process. We recognize the gravity of the decisions before you and the role this committee plays in shaping not just the future of our party, but the ripple effects those decisions will have in states like Tennessee and all across this country. Now, we were going to try to ply y'all with the good Jack Daniels, but they've lost so many millions in tariffs that they couldn't afford to give it to us anymore. Well done. Tennessee is the home of Vice President Al Gore, Music City, Chattanooga, my home, the first national park city in America, and Memphis, where Dr. Martin Luther King spent his final days standing with striking sanitation workers in one of the defining labor and civil rights movements in this country. Tennessee has long helped shape the moral conscience of this country, and we're grateful for the opportunity to make our first bid and share our vision with you today. Along with our Executive Director, Brian Cordova, and Vice Chair Nathan Higdon, I'm honored to have with us here today my partners in this work, our Legislative Caucus Chairs, House Democratic Caucus Chairman John Ray Clemens, and Senator Democratic Caucus Chairwoman London Lamar. They led the fight against the recent racial redistricting in Memphis with strategic clarity, determination, and moral courage. I'm going to turn the program over now to our incredible Executive Director, Brian Cordova, who constantly reminds us that we only limit ourselves when we think too small about what Tennessee Democrats are capable of achieving. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee, for having us today. My name is Brian Cordova. I am the Executive Director of the Tennessee Democratic Party. And look, our pitch is pretty simple, right? We're one of the fastest growing states in the fastest growing region in the country. We are basically a microcosm of what the rest of this country looks like from a demographic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint. We're accessible, and I think that's something that is incredibly important for a lot of campaigns as they're starting out. And then, frankly, we're the gateway to the South. We border more states than any other state except for Missouri, with 8 states. So it's an opportunity for a lot of folks to get in front of a lot of people quickly. So, when we start talking about what we can do in the South, it's more than just a catchphrase for us, right? When Chairman Martin dedicated funding to states like us, we took that on not just as a recommendation, but a responsibility, that we have a responsibility to reorganize our state. And thanks to our chair and our vice chair and our many leaders in the Democratic Party, we reorganized all 95 counties for the first time in 20 plus years, right? So this gives us so much opportunity to truly take us to the next level, right? The challenges that we face are critical right now. The chair just mentioned what happened with the Calais decision. So, we know that the things that we are facing are massive because the Republicans basically set the rules, they're officiating the game, and frankly, they're making us play a person down at the same time. But while other people would generally look at us as a non-starter, this is a real opportunity for us to truly redefine what our party is and where we're going. As we said, since 2024, we're one of the fastest growing states in the fastest growing region in the country. We're getting younger, we're getting more diverse, and we're becoming this mirror of the nation both culturally and demographically. And this is the moment to strike, frankly. If we don't take this opportunity right now, I fear for the future of not just the state, but the region. The GOP has had complete control of our state for the last 16 years, from the governor's mansion to the state legislature to most of the members of Congress and the U.S. Senate. While the rest of the country's been living in this notion of what is going to happen in Project 2025, we've been dealing with it since 2016. We are the testing ground, and they look to us to be the first in line to try out whatever craziness that they want to put forward. And this ultimately leads to the fact that it highlights that Republicans cannot actually lead. and you see the results, and it builds in a jumping off point for all of our candidates to basically run on their record right in their face. So, and I mean, ultimately our state is built to be able to make a case to every single type of voter across the country, from Appalachian voters to a majority black city in Memphis, to the cultural hubs of Memphis and Nashville, to the rural voters who are New Deal Democrats who just forgot that we are the party for, not just for working people, but of working people. And that's our opportunity to truly take it back. And as you can see, our demographics are additive to this early state process. This isn't in contrast. We're not fighting against anyone. This is about adding to this process and making sure that we can have the most complete campaign and the most complete candidate going into the fall. So again, we're a fair and affordable marketplace, meaning we've got over 8 media markets in our state, 5 of which cover the entirety of it, with 3 partial ones. Each of them, or most of them, bleeding into other states, competitive states like Virginia, like North Carolina, like Georgia, Chattanooga being one of the largest media markets in the state of Georgia as well. So investing in a campaign in Tennessee will have bleed over effect in the long term for the entire state and for the entire country and the region then. We also have 3 grand divisions that are within a 3-hour drive of every corner of that grand division, with a major airport in each one, making not just the ability to do retail politics possible, but also making stops into other states not just advisable to campaigns, but possible, right? And then our ease of access to the ballot. You know, the nature of how our calendar is structured opens the door for candidates to build real statewide programming, and from there, it gives us the pathway and the runway to be able to test our candidates in a real and viable way early on. And again, part of this is thinking about us as a region, not just as a state. So with putting us here, we open the door to being a training center for other states like Alabama, like Mississippi, like Arkansas, places where you wouldn't historically think a presidential campaign will come and go, but that can be a centralizing point for folks to come, learn new tactics, take it back to their state, and then we're talking about long-term infrastructure across the entire region, not just in our state. Because for us, 2030 is our high noon. We have to win so that we can start taking back some of the power in our state, and we have a seat at the table. And I mean, finally, you know, we commit to being the most transparent partner with both campaigns and the DNC as we go through this process. You know, we didn't come here with any sort of tricks or things up our sleeves, as our chair cleverly said there. Though I'm sure after these meetings, y'all would much rather have the Jack Daniels than me talking. But, you know, look, we have a strong case here, and I'm going to turn it over to our vice chair and our other leaders to talk through more of the specifics about each one of our regions. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. As a 7th generation East Tennessean, I know what it means to come from a place that has been treated as an extraction economy. Our timber, our labor, our land, our water, and our people have been taken from for generations, while too little has been reinvested. And let's be clear, when this country did invest in us in East Tennessee through the New Deal, through TVA, organized labor, and public works that treated rural people as worthy of dignity, East Tennessee helped build the modern South. Do not mistake Appalachia's neglect for inevitability. It was a choice, and investment can be a choice too. So this primary is not charity. It is not a favor. It is not Democrats throwing a few crumbs toward Appalachia and calling it strategy. This is an investment in rural working people. It is a commitment to generations of Appalachian organized labor. It is a statement that we are done letting rural folks be used, ignored, and written off because we matter. We've always mattered, even when no one acted like it. So I'm here to use my voice to end the extraction economy, politically, economically, and morally. to start pouring into the future our people have died working toward. And now, I would like to introduce a stalwart of the Democratic fight in Tennessee, our House Caucus Chair, Middle Tennessee native, State Representative John Ray Clemens.
Thank you, Dr. Higdon. Are we doing all right today? You guys ready? We have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us in a couple of years to turn this country back around. And it needs to start in the state of Tennessee. Our state was once great, but has failed for over a decade under Republican leadership. We have the opportunity to turn the tide right now with an important decision heading into the next presidential primary. My name is John Ray Clemens, or as some of my Republican colleagues across the aisle call me, the notorious JRC. But I've earned that moniker well because during my 4 years as the House Democratic Caucus Chairman, I've had to battle the expulsion of 3 of my members, and just recently we had to go through the gerrymandering process following the Calais decision. And I've been proud to lead the 23 other members of the House Democratic Caucus because of the hardest working people in the state of Tennessee who fight every single day to make working families' lives better. Because that's who we represent. We represent everyone, not just the select few like our colleagues. Middle Tennessee and Metro Nashville is the epicenter of every major issue that will decide the next presidential election. We all know these elections come down to message and issues. Nashville, Metro Nashville, and the entire region is a snapshot of the heartbeat of America. As Brian said, it's one of the fastest growing metro areas in the United States. We've got a booming economy, just like the rest of other parts of the country. But just like in other parts of the country, working families are being left behind because of failed Republican leadership. Now, I coach inner city baseball and have for about 14 seasons, investing in children. And the one with the messages I preach every season to my children is, every at-bat, every play is an opportunity. What are you going to do with that opportunity? So we have an opportunity here, like I said. An early presidential primary in Tennessee provides our party's candidates a testing ground, a unique opportunity to discuss the stark contrast between Democratic leadership and Republican leadership. In Tennessee, the GOP has enjoyed complete control of state government since 2011. Now, during that time, they doubled the state budget, but failed to invest any of that strong economic growth that had been produced under Democratic majorities and Governor Phil Bredesen in the previous decade. They failed to invest any of that growth and opportunity in our families and communities across the state of Tennessee. You know, our state has led the race to the bottom in every major issue of importance that will be discussed in the next presidential election. On the job front, our state has experienced, the state of Tennessee has experienced 0% job growth over the last 2 years. We're the healthcare capital of the United States in Nashville, yet we lead the nation in Tennessee in rural hospital closures per capita since 2014 because we, in Republicans' infinite wisdom, refused to expand Medicaid, turning away tens of billions of dollars that could have been invested in rural communities across Tennessee. In Tennessee, women have to drive over 2 hours in some parts of our state just to get to an OB clinic because those clinics are closing down, because insurance companies are running our state rather than our state regulating the insurance industry. Now, we all know public education is the single best source of opportunity for every child. It's the single greatest investment. But Tennessee's among the lowest in country for per pupil spending. We spend about $12,000 per student compared to the national average of over $19,000. With regards to transportation and infrastructure investments, which facilitate economic growth, we have I-24. If any of you have ever been to Nashville and had the nightmare of driving up I-24, it's the 11th most congested roadway in the nation. And instead of investing in that and building public transit and public transportation, they're turning it into toll lanes. And agriculture, the seal of Tennessee has agriculture and commerce printed proudly on our state seal. But row crop farmers have lost $430 million in the last year and $730 million over the past 2 years. That is tragic. But those failing numbers, those Republican failures, while they've controlled everything and have all the blame on them, provide us with an opportunity to create the contrast our candidates need, to talk about tangible items, tangible issues with which people of this country can relate in every corner of this country. And they can talk about them right in our backyard, in that testing ground, and point to these specific issues of how Democratic leadership looks, how the Democratic future will look running this country. Because Nashville, Middle Tennessee's problems are not only our problems, they're America's problems. They're the next generation's problems. So I'll leave you with this. What are we going to do with this opportunity? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you to our House Caucus Chairman, JRC, for those powerful remarks and your leadership. I'm proud to stand behind you to lead our Democratic caucus in the Tennessee General Assembly. I want to thank the Tennessee Democratic Party and our chairwoman, Rachel Campbell, for inviting me to be here today and allow me to speak on behalf of West Tennessee. And thank you to the Democratic National Committee for hosting this important meeting today, for creating space for what is a critical conversation about the future of our party. And I want to especially thank our chairman, Ken Martin, for coming to Memphis this past weekend, for engaging with Democrats on the ground, and for recognizing what so many of us already know. Memphis and Tennessee are not afterthoughts. We are pivotal to the future of the Democratic Party and the future of this country. My name is London Lamar, and I stand before you as a mother and a state senator representing Memphis, Tennessee. I am the youngest woman, the youngest African American ever elected to the Tennessee Senate. And I serve as chairwoman of the Tennessee Senate Democratic Caucus. But I did not get here by myself. I stand on the grit, the work, the sacrifice, and the legacy of Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is not just a city on the map. Memphis is one of the cultural hearts of this country. We gave America country music that changed the world. We gave America blues music that changed the world. We gave this country food, soul, creativity that has shaped generations. And most importantly, we are central to the civil rights movement and sitting on the Mississippi River, where Memphis remains one of the transportation and logistic hubs of this country. But our reach does not just stop at the Tennessee border and the Tennessee state line. Memphis sits at the edge of Mississippi and Arkansas and right nearby Missouri. Our influence moves across borders every single day through our workers, through our families, through our economy, our culture, and our politics. That is why moving Tennessee's presidential primary date up is so important. Tennessee sits at the center of the South. We border 8 states, which means our influence is not just local, not just statewide, but it's regional. What happens in Tennessee has the power to reach across the South and shape national momentum, because we all know the South is the last battleground of this nation. And if we win the South, we take the nation every single presidential election. And Memphis in particular represents the very people Democrats say we are fighting for: working families, Black voters, young people, communities demanding affordability, representation, justice, and opportunity. Memphis is one of the largest majority Black cities in America, and African American voters remain the backbone of the Democratic Party. If we are serious about building a winning national strategy, then we must be serious about investing in communities that have carried this party's election after every election after every election. Memphis represents that. Tennessee is not simply a red state. Tennessee is an underinvested state. Tennessee is a state where too many people have been told their voice does not matter. Tennessee is a state that's been told people that their vote doesn't matter. And our state has been written off before the races have even began. But when we invest, we organize. And when we organize, we energize. And when we energize Tennessee, we just do not awaken a state, we awaken a region. Moving Tennessee's primary date up will bring presidential candidates into our communities earlier. It will force them to speak directly to Southern voters, Black voters, rural voters, urban voters, working class voters, and young voters who deserve to be heard at the beginning of the process, not at the end. An investment in Tennessee is an investment in the South. An investment in Memphis and an investment in the backbone of this party. And an investment in this region is an investment of the future of our democracy. So today, I urge you to see Tennessee not as a state to overlook, but as a state to organize, to invest in, and believe in. Because if Democrats are serious about winning the future, then Tennessee must be a part of this strategy from the very beginning. So I ask that you consider moving Tennessee's primary date up. And with that, I say thank you, and I'm going to hand the floor back over to our Chairwoman Campbell. Thank you.
And thank you all so very much. And we're going to move to questions from the committee. Thank you for all your presentations. Any questions? Andre?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Andre Triber from Texas. I had a couple questions about, I'll just call them election logistics. In y'all's application, you gave really detailed description of your early voting and absentee, but I had a question related to your voter registration deadlines, which weren't mentioned in there, so I wanted to hear about that. And then my other question is about reporting election results. The timeline that y'all mentioned is that final certification takes no longer than 45 days, which I understand is the formal process, but I wanted to know about the practical reality. You know, for an early state, for the momentum of the campaigns and everything, we really need to know the election results that night. So I was curious what the actual reality is of election night as well.
Yes, I'm going to let Brian talk about the voter registration piece of it, but we're really lucky in Tennessee that our election commissions have stayed relatively nonpartisan as much as they can be. And we get our results fairly quickly. We just had our primary for our counties, and there wasn't a race that wasn't called that night. So, I mean, they're fairly quickly, but I'll let Brian talk on the voter registration piece.
Yeah, I mean, historically, it's about 30 days before Election Day is when that window closes. And ultimately, we have a very nuanced approach to how voter registration needs to happen, right? So it comes back down to investment and a commitment to actually doing that work. And so the initial phase of setting up county parties in each of the 95 counties is the first step in actually making sure that that is possible and doable.
We also have digital voter registration
That's right.
as well, so it's so easy to register to vote
Yeah.
in Tennessee. Incredibly easy.
Donna?
Thank you so much. First of all, I actually lived in Tennessee. I don't have the accent, but that's okay. I love Memphis, the birthplace of rock and roll and home of the blues. And by the time you all finish that barbecue and it comes down the great Mississippi River and we taste it in New Orleans, that's when we call it jazz. But 9 days after the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, your legislature and governor, of course, passed a gerrymandered map that gave the Republicans all 9 of your congressional seats. I understand the NAACP, along with the ACLU, have filed a lawsuit. So if you have any update on that, it would be appreciated. Secondly, Tennessee has handed over its voter data, which included the names, date of birth, addresses, the 4 digits of people's Social Security number. So clearly the Trump administration, under the guise of election integrity, will be making some decisions on who should be purged, and I'm sure this will happen sooner rather than later. So if you can tell us about that process and how you all will step in to try to assist those voters who might be accidentally removed from the voter rolls. What is the process? Lastly, Tennessee has one of the highest disenfranchisement rates in the country. I think you in Florida, I was looking on my computer, but I know Florida and Tennessee, the level of disenfranchisement, especially black male voters, is just high. Like 1 out of 12 black men are disenfranchised. And that creates a problem for me to allow this process to go in a state that has so many flaws with regards to protecting voter rights and the ability of eligible citizens to cast their ballot. Lastly, I said lastly once, so here I'll go again. I'm Catholic, so you have to forgive me. 740,000 inactive voters, including 140 of them in Shelby County, were purged. This is before the governor may be working with the Trump administration. Can you tell us any reforms you're going through to help those voters get their registration status back in time for the next election in November? Thank you so much. And I love Tennessee. I lived there 2 years. It was a great experience. I'll go back, but I don't know how much the apartment because I lived in the house. Tipper Gore. Hello.
Thank you. So I will answer as much of your questions as I can remember. I will start off with the first question around the update on the lawsuits, and I'm joined by my chairman of the House Caucus to kind of help me fill in. So far, there were several lawsuits filed. The TNDP filed a lawsuit. The NAACP filed a lawsuit. There were individuals who filed lawsuits. And unfortunately, over the last couple of days, all of those lawsuits failed. The congressional lines will remain in place. So unfortunately, we weren't Alabama or South Carolina and stopped it. Tennessee went forth with carving out Memphis in one of the most deliberate efforts of disenfranchisement that we've seen in modern history. And the people are angry about that, especially as a Memphian myself, who was right there on the floor screaming and hollering, putting up the biggest fight I could. We are here now. Since then, we have a great group of candidates in all districts running because what the Republicans made a mistake of is that they thought they were drawing 3 guaranteed red districts, but they actually made them more blue. And so Democrats are more organized than ever to take back our power. So they're thinking they get a 9-0, potentially they can have a 6-3 with 3 Democratic seats. But with you all's help as well, investing in what is happening in Tennessee, we can truly win those states. And we got great candidates running in all 3 congressional districts. To speak about the disenfranchisement, yes, I've seen, I sit on Senate Judiciary Committee, and I see every day while I'm in session how they have passed laws that predicate on our communities, especially black communities, and basically criminalize everything that you can think of from, it's almost a crime to walk down the street at this point in Tennessee. And they have used that as a way to disenfranchise voters, especially black men and black women are the second fastest growing disenfranchised group of people in Memphis and across Tennessee. But what we are doing is we are educating people. There are groups that are paying the fees for voter reinstatement because it's so expensive to get your voting rights back once you lose those. We have groups working and nonprofits working to help folks register to vote again. There are plenty of groups on the ground hosting mass voter registrations, despite the fact that you have to be registered to vote 30 days before an election. There is an increase in voter education that is going across the state around educating voters on how to get engaged, where to vote. I think we actually have an amazing early voting process. Our early voting process is 2 weeks. And you can go to any early voting location as long as it's within the county that you live in. And most of the elections are decided during early voting. So what does that mean for presidential candidates in this conversation? That means you give presidential candidates a longer runway to come into Tennessee and organize the region and excite people to get out and vote. And so having a 2-week runway is beneficial because they can also schedule being able to hit multiple states at one time without losing their presence in Tennessee. In addition, we are, as a Senate Democratic caucus, are running strong candidates in these districts that are competitive to then drive out votes for down ballot Democratic support. So there is a lot of efforts being implemented to curb some of the disenfranchisement. There are a lot of efforts around voter registration. And even though the courts upheld the decisions, we are still running. The election dates are still the same. The voter registration deadline is July 1st. And we, with your help, will win and bite back. And Tennessee is the capital of the South. And when we organize in Tennessee, we organize 8 other states touching us. And if we win the South and invest in Tennessee, we win this nation.
Frank Leone, D.C. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for the fighting that y'all are doing there in Tennessee. I know you're on the front lines, and it's a challenge. We have one of our requirements for determining if a state gets a waiver to go in the early window is efficiency, particularly the practical ability to schedule the primary. And my understanding is Tennessee would require legislation from the Republican legislature and the Republican governor to shift the date. And so my first question is, do you have any indication that that might happen? And the second point that really applies to Georgia and North Carolina as well is if the Republican state, if a state moves up under the Republican calendar, under Rule 17, they would lose a number of their delegates. And in Tennessee, they would go from 56 delegates to 9 delegates if they were able to, if they had to move up. And so have your discussions addressed the issue of the potential penalty that the Republicans would incur by accommodating a move to an earlier primary? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I can speak to the legislative component of that. I'll hand it over for the executive committee of our party to discuss the delegates issue. On the legislative side, you're right. The Republicans have a supermajority in both houses. We do have communications. Chairwoman Campbell has been communicating with Chairman Golden of the Republican Party of the state of Tennessee, who is in agreement about moving the primary date up. And so if he's able to work with his leadership as our chair has worked with our leadership, we will have bipartisan legislation that we can move through in as quickly as 3 weeks at the beginning of the legislative session to change that primary date. So effectively, if we put that law into effect upon enactment, it could go into effect as early as the end of January 2027, potentially early February, with ample time to prepare for a primary date. But if you don't mind, I do want to, I know she's left the room, but I wanted to follow up on the response to the last question really quickly with regard to the Calais decision and so forth. Look, the reality is in the state of Tennessee, Republicans can do whatever the hell they want. They control everything. They control state government. That's why this is an opportunity for change. So, the best way to get cockroaches to scatter is to shine a light on them. And so if you're going to disenfranchise voters for over a decade, you're going to cut people off the voter roll, you're going to purge voters. What's the last thing you want? National attention. Now, our Secretary of State, Trey Hargett, has been doing this since 2011. Why is that? He's not popularly elected like most states. Our Secretary of State, who runs the coordinator of elections and the Department of Elections, is appointed by the legislature. So he just has to please the supermajority long enough to keep his job. And that's what he's been doing. That's why you have the voter purging. That's why you have the disenfranchisement. They've been pushing these rolls under these false narratives of voter fraud. But what we need to do, what we have the opportunity to do, what you have the opportunity to do, is shine a big-ass spotlight on what is happening in Tennessee. And that will end that and make the cockroaches scatter. You are the ones who are going to present that opportunity to us. We will then take advantage of it. That's what the infrastructure we're building, what we're fighting for in the legislature, will do. This organization has a tremendous opportunity to affect significant change in one of the most downtrodden states in the country under failed Republican leadership. And it starts with this presidential primary.
And speak to the second question there. I mean, as a state, we're going to deal with whatever consequence comes at us, right? We have been in this fight for, ever, it feels like. And so whatever this body decides, we will deal with. Whatever the leadership of the Republican Party does, we'll deal with. And we'll keep coming back stronger and harder. But this isn't just a dalliance for us. This is a mode of survival and a thing for our future, for our kids, for the grandkids, everybody. So that's it.
Steph?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Stephanie Campagna-Wheaton from New Jersey. Thank you for your presentation. I actually have two questions. The first is, can you please give me the average cost for a one-bedroom apartment or a house, there's one-bedroom houses, Donna, in Memphis and Nashville?
Yeah, so in a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment in the Nashville metro area is generally $1,400 to $1,600 a month. In Memphis, it's anywhere from $800 to $1,000, depending on the neighborhood. So affordable housing, again, is another one of these issues facing every community in this country that we can talk about and have an opportunity to discuss in an early presidential primary.
Thank you. My second question, I wish Rep. Lamar was still here. For those of you who don't know, we have a Black maternal mortality crisis in this country where Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than their counterparts, and Representative Lamar is someone who has been on the front lines of that. So I do want to make everyone aware that that is something that the women of Tennessee live with every single day. So my second question is specifically around abortion. I know that there is a ban. How do you folks deal with that, and how do you plan on protecting staff that go to Tennessee who might need one or want one?
Well, I mean, I think, and, go ahead and stand, but I think, much like many of the states that were affected by the trigger ban, the Republicans couldn't wait to get in there and go ahead and make it illegal for women to have abortions in Tennessee for really any reason. There's not much reason why you can't. We have a really, really strong relationship with Planned Parenthood, who does a lot of work to make sure that women and girls, whoever needs an abortion, has access to do it. We have funds that can pay for people to get the abortion should they need to travel for it. But yes, it's just like many states in the South and all across the country and red states everywhere, having an abortion in a place like Tennessee is more than difficult, it's dangerous. However, there are states that border us or the states nearby close enough where we can travel and we can take them. I have daughters that are 22 and 26, and it's a constant concern that I have as well, but I feel confident that should something happen, there are means and opportunity in Tennessee with our partner organizations like Planned Parenthood to make sure that people can get the care that they need.
Thank you. Yvette?
Yvette Lewis, Maryland. So, my husband is from Memphis. He went to Memphis Catholic High School. He was a cub reporter for the Commercial Appeal newspaper. So I know the area very well. My question for you, and I do miss the rendezvous. I know about the rendezvous. But my question for you is, if this were to happen, it's going to require a massive effort on your part to pull it off.
Yeah.
Would you have the infrastructure in place to do that? Would you have the people and the resources that you need so that you can impact more than Memphis and Shelby County, and it would radiate across the state, and then springboard beyond Memphis, or Tennessee rather, after we leave your state?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so incredible that we've been able to organize all 95 counties. We did that in March of last year and have sustained that effort and only grown. We have organized counties everywhere. We have a table that has different organizations that's constantly working across the state. We also have regularly done, particularly during gubernatorial and senatorial years, supporter housing for activists who come in or grassroots organizers who come in who need somewhere to stay. I housed two people from a coordinated campaign a few years ago in my own home. So we have people all over the state who that is the thing that they like to do during elections. They can't knock doors, so they house people who can. We are ready, even now, to start beginning more than we already have to build up. Look, in a place like Tennessee, the Democrats in Tennessee, there's more than you think that there are. And they are ready and just waiting for a reason to really get out here and get this done. We have a strong, strong infrastructure ready to go.
Thank you. I think that concludes our questions, and thank you
you.
so much, Tennessee, for
Thank
traveling
you.
here and
Don't
being
count
with
us
us
out,
today.
y'all. We're in it.
Very great.
Thank you so much.
Good presentation.